Hey guys, how's it going? My name is George, and I am making my first YouTube video ever, and I suck at recording apparently. I am pro-2A, anti-abortion, anti-SJW, and henceforth anti-feminist. I am also right-leaning. So I recently came across this article called TheWeek.com, published on February 20th, 2014. An anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment something or another, goes on to talk about Sleepy Hollow, a quote, absurdly entertaining new show. It's about a revolutionary time-traveling war hero that I haven't seen it. I can't really tell you. That's all I've got. First fake stat they bring up, the 32,000 Americans are killed by guns each year. Now that admittedly is not entirely false, however it is quite misleading seeing as how it is murder or suicide, which it does say in the article. However, it does not tell you that 2/3 of those 32,000 deaths are suicide, and some justifiable homicide. So there is that. There's, quote, a mountain of evidence making it increasingly clear that the wide availability of firearms bears a great deal of blame for the 32,000 deaths. Goes on to say there is no longer any defensible argument for a constitutional right to own a firearm, if there ever was. Alright, so let's bracket the notoriously confusing, apparently, text of the Second Amendment. Let's pull something up real quick. The Second Amendment, quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. As in, will not, cannot, and should not be infringed. Anyway, it goes through the top three main arguments for guns. Guns protect liberty, citizens have a right to defend themselves, and people enjoy guns. All of these, I think, are true. I love guns. I have a lot of them. Its argument against this is, it says the right to rebel argument assumes that an armed revolt is the last option available if the American government ever goes full Weimar. I guess I don't know what that means, to be perfectly honest. And yes it is. In my opinion, yes. Not only has that never happened in a consolidated democracy, we don't have a democracy, we have a representative republic. You don't know how this country works. So that kind of paranoid thinking is itself profoundly corrosive to democratic politics. Me thinking that there is a possibility of someone in a position of power becoming greedy and wanting more power, like in the Soviet Union, Pol Pot, Nazi Germany. Just start naming basically socialist and communist regimes. They've killed over 100 million people, all in an attempt for self-cleanliness. Alright, let's look at this some more. What's more, it's wrong. Political scientist Erica, how the fuck do you pronounce that? Chenoweth? Erica and Maria Stephan's book, Why Civil Resistance Works, puts together compelling statistical evidence that non-violent protest is more likely to attract mass participation and topple government than its armed twin. Can you name one civilization that has fallen because someone, technically a group of people, went out onto the street and said, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't like you? Because I can't. Especially in the modern era, protecting gun ownership, it turns out, is a terrible way to facilitate rebellion against the state. That goes double when the weapons protected are handguns rather than automatic rifles, RPGs, and anti-aircraft batteries. Firstly, it is legal in the United States to own a fucking tank. Alright? People own tanks, mainly in Texas. So yes, you can own things like that. You can own an RPG. You can own a fully automatic rifle. Granted, it's actually kind of hard to get those. Then again, it's also hard to get a tank. I actually don't own one of those. I wish I did. But no, you can get those today. You have to have a shitload of money, but you can get those. Alright, the Second Amendment in favor of untrammeled gun ownership, a right to self-defense, is equally incoherent. For starters, there is no reason that in a civil society the right to defend yourself implies the right to defend yourself however you'd like. I think Germany's doing something where you're not allowed to use excessive force to defend yourself in situations where someone's threatening you. So my main problem with that is if somebody attacks you with an airsoft gun and you kill them because you thought they had a gun and they were pointing it at you, threatening you, yeah, that would not be excessive force at all until you realize it was an airsoft gun or it was a BB gun. It actually had no life-threatening capabilities. Goes on to say, a basic part of government's job is to limit our ability to hurt others, assuming the absolute right to self-defense constitutes, in Alan Jacobs' evocative phrasing, the absolute abandonment of civil society. Guns made civil society. Alright? That's what they did. They make civil societies. There's no other way really around that. And indeed, the evidence is very clear that government fails to adequately regulate guns is failing in its duty to protect its citizens. A recent study found that after Missouri repealed its background check law, the murder rate spiked by 16%. Researchers tracked many of the killings back to newly purchased guns. Conservative writer Robert Verbruggen double-checked the data and concluded that the state's murder rate indeed soared the year after a gun law changed, and there's no other obvious explanation. That's because explanations aren't always obvious. And here's the main argument. It's not that background checks save lives. However, guns take them. No, they do not. When's the last time you had a Colt 45 on the table and it just got up and started shooting people? I haven't seen that anywhere. Not even CNN has said that. Safely used guns are not dangerous. They simply are not. So, background checks, yada yada yada, guns take them, no they don't, murderers do. Contrary to what you may have heard, there just isn't that much scientific controversy about whether easy access to guns helps more than it hurts. That's because it's preventative. Two recent methodological rigorous studies confirmed that high levels of gun ownership lead to both more murders and more suicides. A recent survey of the best research on guns confirmed that those two studies spoke for the consensus of gun researchers. I'm not entirely sure. Give me a minute. Two recent methodological rigorous studies confirmed that high levels of their studies. They are studies. Alright, it's more than an x equals x equation. You have a lot of variables here, so it can't just all be put down to gun ownership. And now they have narrowed it down to one argument, the idea that because people deeply enjoy firearms and gun culture, yes, everything is a culture now, I know, it's great, it's wrong for the federal government to restrict it. This is easily the most serious of the... No! How is this the most serious? It's literally life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness versus having fun with shit that goes bang. How is that more serious? I mean, that's what guns were actually invented for in China. It was literally just for fun. But anyway, there's more than a whiff of disdain for the rifle-toting rubes, as it says, in the anti-gun argument. And it's terribly immoral to use the power of the government to restrict people's rights merely because you find their subculture unpleasant. Let's see here. Where the hell are we? Alright, there we are. Still, this isn't nearly good enough to defend the constitutional right to gun ownership. That last argument in and of itself, yeah, no, it's really not. But wanna know what is? The fact that it's a fucking constitutional right. The United States of America literally would not exist if that right was not there. It's in the Bill of Rights, the first 10 constitutional rights we had. A few states, I think it was North Carolina, South Carolina, maybe Pennsylvania, I don't know what they were, but got together and put the Bill of Rights up and said, we're not joining this union unless these are protected rights. So the United States literally would not exist. Gun rights don't rise to that status. They don't need to rise to that status. The basic principle of liberal democracy is that for laws to be legitimate, majorities must enact them. That is going off the majority rule of straight democracy, which actually is how Nazi Germany started. Everyone wasn't doing well except for the Jews, the one percenters as we would call them today. And so they got blamed for the financial struggle. Majority rule to function fairly. Was it fair that 6 million Jews were killed? No, it is not. Want to know why they were killed? Because they had no guns to protect themselves with. Think on that for a minute, would you? Any other determinations about the scope of lesser rights should be set by Congress and state legislature. Gun rights, then, shouldn't be constitutionally protected. So let me explain something to you. If a foreign power invades the United States of America, there are two parties that will defend America. You've got the U.S. military, God bless them, and you've got gun-owning citizens. The reason that Pearl Harbor was not followed by an invasion of American territory is because, I can't remember the guy's name, but the quote is, there would be a gun behind every blade of grass. Alright? There are more guns in America, there are more registered guns in America than there are Americans. Just think on that. I think it's pretty cool, personally. Gun rights then shouldn't be constitutionally protected. Instead, they should be regulated like any other dangerous thing many Americans enjoy. Drugs. People who deeply enjoy alcohol, marijuana is not dangerous. We can get into that another time. And other drugs should be free to use them under certain circumstances. Like drunk driving, no, alright. My aunt, a couple years back, was killed by a drunk driving accident where the drunk driver was going 100 miles per hour the wrong way in an exit lane off of a highway and rammed right into her car and killed her. The drunk driver survived, though. That's actually surprisingly often. It's because the alcohol in your system makes you not tense up, and it makes you able to take more beating, I guess. Anyway. So, as long as it doesn't affect me, I'm fine with it. Drug prohibition is monstrously illiberal, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to get wasted while driving, again, killed by a drunk driver on the job. If I'm going to fucking McDonald's because I want a goddamn Big Mac, and the guy back there is drunk as a skunk, I was like, I want a fucking Big Mac, what the hell? Or when you're underage. This also affects people, however, it's more of a long-term thing than an immediate thing, because it prevents brain growth and kind of just fucks you up mentally. So likewise, the fact that there's a liberty interest in allowing gun ownership doesn't mean guns should be easy to get. They really aren't horribly easy. I mean, it's relatively speaking to other countries easy to get a gun here. But background checks are a no-brainer. They don't fucking work. If there was a murder and you have a suspect and all the interrogation you do is, did you murder the guy? That's basically what a background check is. They just have to take your word for it. Penalties for it should be much harder to purchase guns, and the penalties for abusing them should be much more serious. I'm not sure it can get more serious, unless you have a way to kill somebody twice. For instance, Japan's onerous gun regulations have almost wiped out gun crime. Actually, certain studies show that it's also highly related to their, I think it was, having a gun is now like having a time bomb in Japan. One Japanese mafia boss told the Japan Times. So, yeah. One point that they do make that I fully agree with, where does it say it? Many of these rules, like requiring gun owners regularly undertake the equivalent of a driver's test for guns. That I fully agree with, because when like, say I go to the range and somebody has a Smith & Wesson 9mm, that gun doesn't actually have any external mechanized safety. So if there's a bullet in the chamber, it's ready to go. some guy that is obviously their first time at the range, think they're going to be all cool looking, has their finger inside the trigger guard, pops open the slide, puts a mag in, closes the slide. There's a gun in the chamber, he's waving it around, and his finger's on the trigger. That thing has a very light trigger. It's very easy for it to go off. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a great day. Drop a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Have a fantastic day, guys.